So just having the feet about mat distance or so, so the inside edges of your knees are touching. So this position that we refer to as constructive rest. Your arms can flop open wherever they're comfortable. You can soften your gaze or close your eyes. Just take a moment to really settle on in here, connecting with your breath. Inviting your breath to lengthen, to deepen, to really slow down. Giving your body and your mind the permission to do the same. Throughout our practice, we're going to take a little trip around the hip on the 6 degrees of freedom. So we'll do a little bit of movement in each direction. So here in your constructive rest pose, we have a very mild internal rotation of our thighs. And then let's go ahead and do the opposite. Start to walk your feet in towards one another and let your knees fall open to recline butterfly. You can play a little bit with how close your feet are to your body. So the closer your feet are towards your body, the more tension it might start to add into your inner upper thighs, your adductors. Farther away, a little less. If it's pulling or tugging and you need support, you could use pillows, towels, yoga bricks, and prop under the outer knees if you need something to rest into. And if you don't have those things available, light fists work under the outer hips. But if you're not using your hands for support, take one hand to your low belly and the other to your chest. Let the shoulders lay back, your throat and jaw soften a little bit more. If you have your hands on your torso, you have some biofeedback, something to breathe into. Inhaling all the way down to the bowl of your pelvis, feeling the bottom hand lift. And as you exhale, simply allowing breath to empty out, feeling your bottom hand lower. So very gently and over time beginning to deepen the breath. We're not trying to push our bellies out in any way. As you're breathing all the way down to the bowl of your pelvis, start to lift the breath up your torso, expanding into the lateral, the side ribs. And as you exhale, feeling the ribs fall, return to their neutral, natural position. As the lungs empty out. Continuing to gradually lengthen and deepen breath. Inhale all the way down to the base of your container, filling up the side ribs, the side waist, and bringing your breath all the way up to the tops of your collarbones. And as you exhale, feeling the top hand fall, the belly soften, and the low belly empty out. Inhaling, continuing on, filling up from the bottom to the top. expanding the front, the back, the sides of your torso. Taking one more full, complete cycle of breath here, from the bottom to the top, and letting it fall from the top back down to the bottom. If your hands are on your torso, you can let them fall, palms facing up or palms facing down, whatever's feeling good on your shoulders right now. Inhaling, still filling up all the way to the base of your container, allowing your breath to remain full. Exhale, press the bottoms of your feet together and down into the floor, just a little bit. Inhale, relax, release all tension. Exhale, press your feet together and the pinky toe sides down enough to feel the outer hips begin to fire. Very, very gently, very, very subtle movement. Continuing on with your breath, a few more cycles. So as you're exhaling and pressing the feet together and down, it's just enough to notice the difference between contraction and relaxation, letting go on the inhale. And then take a breath to settle, to do nothing. You can use your hands if you need to close your knees back up. And then walk your feet and your knees close together. Just give a little windshield wipe, a little shake of your knees from side to side, rocking on the back of your pelvis to release all tension. Sometimes we still unconsciously hold or grip. And then coming back through center, very subtle movement. Inhale deeply into the base of your container all the way to the bowl of the pelvis. Now as you exhale, push the inner knees together now. Inhale to release, relax tension. Exhale, pressing the inner knees together, this hugging in action. Continuing on a few more cycles at your own pace with your own flow of breath, just enough to notice the difference between contraction and relaxation. This action, ADD, adduction, adding in, hugging in. And taking a breath to do nothing, to relax. And if you find that little windshield wipe or shake of the knees helpful, feel free. As we come back to center, knees and feet still close together, the breath pattern will remain the same here. Big inhale. As you exhale, push your feet down, dig your heels into your mat, and engage your glutes. Lift your hips just a tiny bit, so it's not a big full bridge like we might be used to. Hips are barely leaving the floor. Inhale to release, to relax. Exhale, knees and feet stay together, lifting the hips a teeny tiny little bit. Inhale to let go. One more full breath, just like that. And And after you've finished, heavy pelvis back on the mat. Walk your feet about mat distance or so, wider than your hips. Opening the arms like a T. Palms up or palms down, whatever's feeling nice on your shoulders right now. And just begin to windshield wipe the knees from side to side. Begin to link and sync up that movement with your breath. It might be inhale one direction, exhale the second side. And instead of taking your knees down towards the floor, imagine taking your knees away from your hips. So we have one thigh now turning in, the other turning out. A little internal and external rotation. Notice probably one side, one direction is easier than the other. Equal from side to side. We'll bring the knees back towards the ceiling. Walk the feet in about hip distance or so. And we'll take our left thigh up in towards the chest. Interlace your hands under the thigh, close to your knee. And then extend your leg up nice and long. Just let the foot relax for now. Big inhale. And exhale, imagine taking your thigh away from you. Try to press your left hip down and away. And your arms are only so long, so you're gonna get to a point that you can't get any farther away. And then we'll flex our ankle a little bit more. Inhale, think of reaching up through the heel towards the sky. Exhale, continue to press your thigh into your hands. Your hands are there to offer equal resistance. We're not necessarily looking for a hamstring stretch. That might be your experience if you're holding tension there. But we don't need to draw our leg way over our head or move towards a split. What we're really looking to do is take the top of our thigh bone towards the back plane of our hip joint. And just to warn our hips that something's about to happen. Let's go ahead and trade our legs. So left foot's gonna come down. We'll interlace our hands behind the right leg. Just taking a breath to set that up. Exhale, pressing the thigh into your hands. Inhale, reach up through your heel. You can keep your knee as bent as it needs to be. But as you exhale, press your thigh into your hands. Your arms are only so long. It's a little bit different than maybe what we're used to, drawing our thigh close to our belly. Especially my acro yogi friends, my handstand friends, where we do a lot of those compression drills, so a little bit different. And then we'll tuck our knees into the chest. Go ahead and grab whatever you're using for a belt, whether that's a yoga belt, a long sock, a towel, house coat strap, whatever you have handy. And we'll loop the bottom of our left foot. So we can have our right foot down onto the mat, knee bent. If you straighten your leg, it's gonna add a little bit more tension. So if you're feeling a bit tight through the back of your thigh, your hips, or your low back, just keep your right knee bent. And of course, you can keep your left knee as bent as it needs to. So there's no pulling or tugging across the back of the joint. But the same action, the same sensation in the back of the thigh, the hip, as you inhale, think of reaching up through the heel. Exhale, pressing your thigh, your hip down and away, like you could make the left side of your waist longer. And then we'll move both ends of our belt into the left hand. Right arm can tack down onto the top of the right thigh or off to the right side. Big breath. Press a little bit through the ball of your left toe mounts. You're pressing gas pedal to the metal. And we'll let our leg fall open out to the side. So we can rest the left elbow down onto the mat like a little kickstand. If you need more support, you could tuck a brick or a cushion under the left outer leg. got the time here for us. But as you're settling in, can you notice if you have equal pressure from side to side? It's really common with the weight of the leg going out to let the right hip come up off the ground, but then we'll miss out on a lot of that good stretch on the inseam of our thigh. So really pour a little bit more weight back into the right side of your pelvis. 3 more breaths here. We won't stay too long on this one. And coming back to that adduction, zipping up your inner upper thigh back to the midline. And then just trade hands with your belt at the top. So both ends of the belt are into your right hand. I'm just going to spin around, so if you need to see from a different angle. The right knee can remain bent, foot on the floor, or the leg can be out long. That adds more tension. But let's bring the bottom of the left foot pretty parallel to the ceiling. So we're not pointing our toe, and one side's not kind of hanging out, lower or higher than another. As you inhale, reach up again through the heel and the toe mounds of your left foot. And as you exhale, guide your foot over but up. So it's coming across your midline, but more in line with your right shoulder. So it might be a little bit different than the big twist that's really common to do here. So we have our left leg crossing the midline, and if your right knee is bent, no problem. And the toes are coming more over the right shoulder in that direction. If you need to add in, you can hook your left thumb into your left hip crease and press it down and away. So we have this sort of arcing sensation that's happening, or direction. Ian Finn's signature pose here, a position we refer to as IT love. When we get everything in place, we're not trying to pull our leg or make the stretch any deeper than it really needs to be, past sensation. I'm just using the weight of my arm hanging heavy to sort of pin my leg or foot in its place. Just 3 more breaths here. So that same idea of pressing your left hip down and away, keeping the left side of your waist long. We'll release the tension. You can just let your hand belt slide. We'll tuck our knees, both knees up into the chest. Give your hips a little rock. Take a breath or two. Notice any differences from side to side. And then we'll do that on the second side. So we'll loop up the bottom of our right foot. Working our right leg towards any amount of straight. The left foot comes back to the mat, the knee can be bent, or the leg can be out long. That can add a bit more tension. So it may not look the same from side to side. Before we go in, inhale, reach up through the bottom of your foot. Press your right thigh down and away. And then let your leg fall open any amount out to the side. Same as the first side, your left hand can help to anchor that side of your pelvis and reach out long. You can prop under the right outer thigh if you need some support. But do try to get equal pressure. Really easy to let the left hip come up off the ground. So we don't need to worry about how close our right leg is getting to the floor. Try to pour more weight back onto the left side. breath. On your next exhale, zipping up your inner upper thigh, adding your leg back in, trading your hands at the top. So both ends of your strap move into your left hand. Big inhale, reach up through your heel, your toe mounts. Exhale, guide your right toes across so they cross over your belly button, but then draw up a little bit more to stack towards being on top of your left shoulder. So just notice, again, more familiar posture maybe is to let the leg fall open, to take this big twist, which is a really great twist too. But I promise I have a twist for you coming soon. And if you need to add in, you could always hook your right thumb into your own hip crease and help to find that sensation of pressing your hip down and away. One more full breath right where you are. Let the belt slide through your hand, back off that tension. Tuck your knees back up into your chest. You can just toss your strap out of your way here. Give your hips a little rock. Draw some circles with your knees. And switching the direction if you haven't. And you can rock onto either side, take a breath or two. Use your top hand to press you up and around to table. Taking a moment to stack wrists under shoulders, knees under hips. Give your spine, your back any little movement, adjustment, or fidget that it's asking for. And then we're going to start to step or lunge our left foot forward. So you may need to cushion under the back knee. You can do that by rolling up the side edge of your mat or using a blanket or a folded towel. And we'll start on this series just having the knee right on top of the ankle. So it can be easy kind of do this overstepping or not quite get the foot under, so just help it along. And if you need to, you could always come more to a propped up version. So if it's a little bit too tight to be so low, you can prop your hands up even on your front thigh. Blocks, books, coffee cans, whatever you've got handy. As we settle in, really allow the right side of your pelvis to get heavy towards the floor. And even if you're using your arms to support you on any of those versions, just let your shoulders slide down your back a little bit more. You could let your head hang heavy. If you're good where you are, you're invited to stay. If it's feeling a little bit like your thigh is in your way, you could tip-top your left foot open out to its side so you have room to come inside. Allowing your pelvis to get a little heavier towards the floor, the elbows might soften. The right elbow might start to drop down onto a prop or the earth, and if that goes well, the left might join in. They might not be the same height. It's okay. It doesn't have to be really static. You can give your hips a little rock from side to side or front to back, finding that Goldilocks zone to settle back into. Really just meeting your body where it is and allowing it to adapt to your practice. And allowing your practice to adapt to your body. The last stop on our little dragon train for this evening, or this class anyway, is to begin to turn the thigh a little bit more open and check in with the back of your hips. It might not be for everyone. And let the outer knee fall more towards the floor. You can even take your left hand up onto your hip, adding in a little bit of a twist, or gently pressing the inner thigh away. ABD, abduction, so sending the thigh away. Whether you're on your elbow or up on your hand there, just give the floor a little bit of a push so we're not sitting and sinking into our shoulder or our wrist joints. One final breath here. As you exhale, turn to look at the mat if you aren't already. Climb yourself back up onto your hands if your elbows are down. Turn your front thigh back in, toes facing forward. Inhale, lengthen your back, puff up your chest a little. And then exhale slowly and go back towards a half split. And then just rock front to back a few times. Inhale to lunge forward. Exhale to press the hips away. Next time you land back in that half split shape, high up in your hip joint, turn your thigh bone from side to side. So we'll have the ankle a little bit flexed so we're not pointing our toes, rolling across the ankle. And your hip might wag, your tail might wag a little from side to side. You notice it's probably a little easier one direction than the other. Lunge a bit forward to back some tension off. Come back through table. Your hips a little rock. If it's not good for your wrists, you can just step your feet back one at a time, opening the back of your knees, kick the heel back, lift the thigh, take 2 to 3 breaths, do the second side. If your wrists and shoulders are feeling okay, it's okay to go upside down. Turn your toes under, press your hips up and back to really downward dog, lazy downward facing dog. If you're up and down dog, release your knees back to the mat. And then we'll just do our second side. We'll step our right foot forward. And just help get your ankle right underneath of your knee. And send your back knee back to lengthen your stride any amount. And if you need some props, this side it's a little bit tighter. I can't quite make my hand to the floor comfortably. So I could stack something underneath of my hands to help lift the chest. You can even come all the way upright, which might even help you to move a bit deeper into the front of your back thigh. Wherever your hands settle, even if you are using your arms for support, let your shoulders slide down your back. Let your left hip, pelvis get really heavy. The head can release and hang heavy towards the mat if that feels okay on your neck. If not, let's keep a little bit more of that metal element, lifting the chin, looking more forward if that feels better. If you're good where you are, of course, feel free to stay. If you're ready to move towards those lower versions, we just tick-tock our right foot a little bit more open so we have room to come inside. We might still be high on our hands. Soften our elbows, melt the heart. Maybe the left elbow releases down towards a prop or the mat. And if that goes well, maybe the right. You might not be the same height. Take 5 more full breaths here. As we stay, you may need to adapt. The edge may change. Start to let the thigh fall a little bit more open, outer knee falling towards the mat. You might turn the thigh out, so we would spin our toes off the long edge of the mat. And to add a bit of twist, just turning your belly, your chest to face in the same direction as your bent knee, front knee. Top hand, maybe it's resting on the hip, resting on the thigh. And whether you're down on your elbow or up on your hand on a prop, just give the floor a little bit of a push. So we're not sitting in our shoulder or wrist joints. Taking all breath out, turning to look at the mat. Unraveling that twist. Right toes will come to turn back forward if they're turned out, and go slow. Shift the hips back. And lunge a little bit forward. It doesn't need to be quite as far as you just were, but link the movement up with your breath. The next time you find more of that half split position, you stay. A gentle flex to the ankle, pulling the toes up towards the hip. We'll turn the thigh bone high in the hip joint. You do notice one direction is probably easier than the other. For me, external rotation, pinky toe side is quite a bit easier. Taking internal, and my big toe, I get to a certain point, I want to start to cheat by cycling my ankle. There's no need. We'll lunge back forward, come back to your table. And the same options as before. You might give the hips a little rock, and extending one leg at a time. If it's feeling okay on your wrists, your shoulders, you can pike your hips and take a lazy dog. Child's pose. Should mention. Releasing the knees back to the mat if they're up in the air. We could turn our toes under. And my pinky toes never make it, so I just reach around and give them a little help. As we start to sit back onto the heels or towards there. You can walk your hands a little closer to your knees or up on your thighs. And if you need more lift, of course, put yourself on up. You can use props. Something to sit down on. A little more, you can untuck your toes. You can make the prop shorter. Or you can come to sit right on your heels. So sitting in the saddle, I'll show from the back side, but we'll take our big toes towards each other if you're on the tops of your feet, and then drag your toes back. So I sickle my ankles on purpose. Then I drag my toes out so the toes are facing straight back in line with the knee. That action will help to bring a little bit of tone in the muscle on the outer shin. And if you still feel that you need a little bit more, you can walk, not your knees, but the ankles open to sit down onto the mat. But then do the same thing. Take your big toes towards each other and then drag them apart so they're facing right back in line with your knees, your shins. So the thighs in this position are starting to turn in a little bit. So make sure there's no biting or pinching high up in the groin. And the hip flexors. For another 30 seconds or so here. It's about 5 more conscious deep breaths. forward. Make sure that you untuck your toes if they're turned under. We're having a bit of a storm here, so we're gonna join in and make it storm. And then we're gonna make it rain. And the forecast here, probably for chilling in the territories. We're gonna make it snow. Really quiet, really quiet, really light. However you need to come over, I like to cross my ankles and sit back. However you need to get there, come on to your seat with your legs out front. Just give your legs a little shake. Yeah, if your pelvis is being pulled under you, it's tucking under and it's kind of throwing your chest back behind your hips, it would be a really good idea for you to sit up on something, whether that something is a cushion. Blocks are a bit like edgy, sharp. Pillow, you could even just kind of fold up the back edge of your mat or a towel to help to lift your sits bones, your seat, to allow the pelvis to come forward. So that's where we're gonna go. Big inhale. Exhale, taking the initial tilt, just tipping your pelvis forward over your thigh bones. You need to keep your knees more bent. It's completely allowed. It's really common, I think, really common shape in our regular practice, and a lot of us are used to flexing our ankles, keeping our back flat, grabbing our toes or pulling in a little deeper. We can let all of that go in the yin practice. It becomes really passive. So keeping only as much activity as you need to keep your back safe, to protect the back of your knees. But if your legs start to roll a little bit open, a little bit in, as long as there's no pain, that's completely fine. And if you do need more support for your head, your neck, anything you have available, you can build yourself a little platform, something to rest your head down onto. Sometimes that's even nice just to take the weight, that bowling ball 8-10 pound weight off of your neck and your shoulders. Final 5 breaths here at the bottom. Taking that mental scan throughout your body. See if there's anywhere at all that you could soften just a little bit more. Whether that's physically, mentally, or energetically. Inhaling, rolling yourself up. Take as many breaths as you need to get there. Just walk your hands back behind. You can have your arms turned in whatever direction feels good on your wrists and your shoulders. Bending your knees, taking your feet a little bit wide. And just giving a little windshield wipe to the knees. We're going to come down onto our back. Make sure there's some space behind you, however you need to get there, onto one side or just lowering on down. Tuck your knees in, give your hips a little rock. And then we'll sweep the arms back open, that T position. We'll cross the left thigh over top of the right. If that's a little bit too deep for your hips or your low back, you could always make it more like a figure 4, ankle on the thigh. Wherever you are, before you twist, we're gonna take a little bit of a twist. Move your hips, physically pick them up and move them a little bit to the left. Inhale. Exhale your legs, your knees are gonna fall to your right. So this allows us to twist our spine more on its axis. Our pelvis is in line with our ribs, our shoulder, our head. And it's yin, so if your left shoulder came up off the floor, it came along for the ride, as long as that feels good, it's not causing any tingling, pain, it's okay. Your head can look out over either shoulder. As you settle in, really come back to that 3-part breath like we did way back in the beginning. It will require a little more effort as you need to breathe into that tension. So compressing the soft bits of our belly. Imagine filling up, using your breath to help create more space on the left side waist, the left outer hip, release through your low back. One more full conscious breath here at the bottom. And then inhaling, filling up completely. Using the top half of your exhale to unravel your twist. Move your hips back in line. Tuck your knees back up into your chest. Give your hips a little rock. Just get everything back in its place. And then we'll do the second side. We'll cross our right thigh or our right ankle over. Before we twist, we'll give our hips a little bump, a little move off to the right side. Inhale deeply. Exhale, let your knees fall to the left. Again, if your right shoulder came along for the ride, it's lifting up off the floor. If that's not putting tension, too much tension, like pain, into your low back, across your shoulder, causing tingling in your fingers, it's okay, as long as it feels good. And if not, just back that off. You could always lift your chest up and help to square it back up. And if you did have your head turned one side, I suggest you turn it to the second direction here. Once you settle in using your breath, then right side, right lateral side, the side of your ribs. Can you breathe more space there? Can you find more relief across across your low back, release across the right outer hip. Three more full conscious breaths. Using the top half of your next exhale, no hurry, to unravel your twist, move your hips back. You can tuck your knees up into the chest, giving the hips a little rock. You take your feet back onto the mat, giving a windshield wipe from side to side. Or of course you could lay your legs right out like Shavasana. Just taking a breath or two to allow that to rebound. And then we've got one more movement. So grabbing a prop, whether that's a yoga brick, and most people generally are okay on the medium height of the block. Or you can grab a bolster, a folded up blanket, a couch cushion. Anything that will give you a little bit of a lift. So we'll bring our feet back. It's being under our knees. Grab your prop, big breath. As you exhale, lift your hips up enough to slide your prop underneath. And then find that sweet spot. So it's not too low in the fleshy parts of your glutes, causing pain on your tailbone. It's not too high in the fleshy parts of your low back. So try to find the prop right underneath that flat plate in the back of your hips. You'll know this spot because it feels really, really good to just yield. Be like water. Yield. The arms fall if you need more stretch across your chest or your shoulders. You can open out like a T. The cactus arms, stop sign, goddess arms, goal pose. That can help us sometimes move a little bit deeper into the pec minor, smaller pecs. And taking your arms overhead can help you to stretch serratus, lats, side body. So if you're not quite sure what you need, just take a breath or two each position. We'll settle on in here our final kind of direction or movement. We've got our hips in a little bit of extension. And if you need more, you might start playing with walking your feet farther away from your body. And allow yourself to adapt to the practice and the practice to adapt to you. You walk your feet out, it doesn't feel good, just walk them back in. You walk your feet out, you may need to adjust where the prop is sitting. If your arms are overhead or out to the side, just sweep them back down. If your legs are out long, just walk your feet back under your knees. On an exhale, lift your hips up just enough to move your prop on it. And then see if you can articulate one vertebra, one spinal bone at a time. So take a couple breaths to lower yourself down. When you get all the way back to the mat, untuck your pelvis, find neutral lumbar low back curve. Walk your feet a little wider, coming back to that constructive rest position, like how we began. Or kicking your legs out long to Shavasana. Walk the shoulders down your back, down your mat, give your hips a little rock. I'm going to time about 2 minutes or so. I've got the time for you, but if you prefer a longer relaxation or you have the luxury to do so, you can just leave the meeting or stop the recording if you're on the playback. Otherwise, take a really deep breath in through your nose. Let out a big sigh through an open mouth. Do that twice more. Inhale, fill up completely. Exhale to let it go. One last time. Allowing your breath to seek out its own steady rhythm in and out through your nose. But imagine all tension, all pressures, all stresses, leaving your body, your mind in a slow and gradual manner. With every breath, give yourself the permission and the gift to relax just a little bit deeper on all levels. It's time to rest. Stop talking so that you can do that. Inviting breath to lengthen and deepen. Send fresh breath, fresh energy, vitality, vibrancy out to your fingers and your toes as you wiggle, open and close. and stretch any way that your body is asking for. Taking your time to turn onto either side, support your head with your bottom arm if you need to, blink your eyes. Just use your hands to walk yourself on up and around to an easy seat. If you use hand gesture or mudra as part of your practice, please feel free. Generally, I like Anjali, a representation of union. You do you. We'll find that inner lift of our heart, a slight nod of our chin. Soften your gaze or close your eyes. Then coming back to breath, that uniting force that quite literally keeps us here, but helps us to connect. Connect mind, body, being, and to one another. Those deeper layers. The veil is a little thinner, connecting to the community and the collective. Ending the practice on that note of thankfulness, of gratitude, knowing that taking good care of yourself will only allow you to take better care of others. Let's take one more breath here together. Empty out your lungs. Inhale to fill up completely. Big sigh, open mouth. Namaste.